Hey y'all, this is Upstart Records, and this is our new podcast,
The Youth Movement,
a show that covers youth everything, what's happening, what's good, and what's popping in the Bay Area. This is our voice, our show, The Youth Movement. The Youth Movement.
The Youth Movement. Hi, my name is Emily Gonzalez. Today's talk show theme is creativity. So some of the things that I do for creativity is songwriting, photography, and also doing paintings. So some of these things that they help me do is coping, and by coping, you express a lot of the negative emotions that you have, and I literally put them into my creative work and bring it out into something positive rather than having to focus on a bunch of the negative things, because if you just focus on the negative things, it just seeps in, and to make it into something that's going to be useful and creative for other people is going to be much more of an influence than you just sitting back and being quiet about it. That's my perspective on how art is useful in my life. At the Youth Movement podcast, we want to find out how others are using their creativity. On today's show, we'll speak to some young artists and youth leaders who are producing creative work and promoting spaces in San Francisco where teenagers can go and practice using their creativity. First off, we'll meet Chaz, who works at The Mix at the San Francisco Public Library. The Mix is a creative place for teens and kids to be able to create music, art, and visual recordings of their own. The reason why it's important to have this for teens is because without this space, they wouldn't be getting the opportunities in music, art, and jobs. We'll also hear a commentary from Nene, a freshman at Washington High School, who feels strongly about the power of creativity. We asked her about the issues in her community and how she uses art to cope with those problems. And we'll also meet Case Max, a young poet who got started at Youth Speaks, an organization that teaches teens how to write and perform slam poetry and use art to talk about problems in society and in their daily lives.
My name is Chaz Ray Bell, and I work at The Mix at SFPL, which is a teen center at the main library in San Francisco.
Okay. What do you do at The Mix?
Well, The Mix itself is a innovative teen space, and I show people how to use a bunch of our equipment, like our 3D printer or our keyboards. I give tours. I host some of the programs that we have at The Mix as well.
What kind of programs have you hosted?
Well, we have a lot of programs that involve actual hands-on craft work. Like I said, 3D printing, as well as, we've had sewing, we have had beat making, which I've helped supervise. We have video making, and I've done a bunch of different stuff there.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Might drop by and do some beat making myself,
Cool.
Why is The Mix important to you?
Well, I feel like it's important to me because it provides me a lot of resources that I could use for different things, and it not only provides me resources, it provides teens resources and a place to express themselves, and I find this to be a very important thing to be able to do.
Do kids have to pay?
No. Everything involving the public libraries are free. So, not just The Mix is free, but everything, like events or programs anywhere in the library system. It's all free.
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's really cool. All right, so what would you say in your own words, what has The Mix done to improve you yourself?
Well, the whole library in general. Since I started working there, I've found a lot of new connections with people I never would have met, with groups I never would have met. I found a better way to express myself. I've gotten a lot of workplace skills and more knowledge outside myself, and I've broadened my horizons overall, so it's done quite a lot for me.
Do you know by any chance what projects or in San Francisco you've worked with? Do you remember any that you could name off and give us a little description about what they are, how you've worked with them?
I know a few, Youth Speaks, which is a expression thing, a lot of spoken word and poetry. I've worked with them. I've worked with Writers Core, which is a lot like Youth Speaks, but has more to do with writing and stories. And Your Story, I've worked with Blue Bear School of Music. I've worked with BayVac, which is the Bay Area Video Coalition. I've worked with sections of BayVac, such as Bump Beats, which also makes beats like Blue Bear School of Music. Let's see. I've been involved in the Where Do You Belong project. I've helped with a new project that's not really the mix, but is through the library. It's called the Biblio Bistro, in which we have a program where we teach youth how to make food, and we also go out to a farmer's market every third Wednesday, and we just give people food. We've done a lot of different programs with different partners at the mix. A lot of cool work. So yeah.
Yeah, I bet. So how would other teenagers be able to get hired at the mix?
So you can go through one of the actual programs that provide youth with jobs and not just get hired at the mix, like MyEap, which is the Mayor's Youth Employment Education Program, and YouthWorks, which is a lot like MyEap. They both provide jobs for youth. For the mix in general, we have a board of advising youth, high school age, who are hired every school year.
We heard about your open mics. Can you go into detail with that?
Well, that's sort of through our partnership with Youth Speaks and maybe Writers Core. I haven't been doing the Writers Core programming recently, but we still have it. I'm just unable to go on those days. But at Youth Speaks, we do that every Thursday from 5 to 7. But the Youth Speaks is, like I said, a spoken word thing and creative writing, poetry. So we have a facilitator there whose name is MCK Swift, and he leads the programs on Thursdays, and he sets the agenda, and people are able to do creative writing and poetry with them, and then we're able to just perform in the space.
Can you explain how to find the mix, where the location is at, and yeah.
Well, the mix is inside of the main library in San Francisco, which is located at 100 Larkin Street, which is in the Civic Center. And it's basically across the plaza from City Hall. And it's near several bus stops in Muni and BART, so it's very accessible and easy to get to.
So how do you become a member of the library, the mix?
Well, like I said at one point, it's all free. So the only real thing we need a youth to do is sign a waiver, because we have a few things in the mix that can be potentially harmful, like our 3D printer, which heats up, as well as sewing. You could hurt yourself. So all we need is you to sign a waiver to say you won't hold us responsible for the chance that you could get hurt in the mix, and then you could basically come in anytime. But I also have to say that it's a teen-only space, just to make sure that everybody knows. So we have an age range of 13 to 18 with flexibility around the ages of 12 and 19.
Okay, nice. How many books have you read at the mix?
Well, I
Zero, sucker! No, I'm just joking. Go ahead.
I like to read a lot, so it would be hard to count. I've probably read
Would you say it's in the hundreds?
Definitely, at least in the hundreds.
Have you ever vomited at the mix from reading such a great book?
Luckily, probably unluckily, since it would be a great book, I haven't vomited at the mix, unluckily. But
so you have vomited at
I haven't vomited at the mix,
you have
unluckily,
not.
because I didn't read a book good enough to make me vomit.
Okay, so but have you vomited whatsoever?
No.
Okay.
Well, I vomited before, but not at the mix.
Oh, okay, so you vomited before getting to the mix. All right.
Yes.
All right, man. That's cool. That's cool. All right, then, Chaz. Thank you again for coming to the youth movement.
No problem.
Really appreciate having you here.
This has been fun.
My name's Nene. I'm 14. Home to me is where you feel most comfortable. Like, if you feel like you need to get away from something, you go home, you know? And then community is more like the place that makes your home your home. Like, community, I guess it supports it. It adds on to home. I would like to stop seeing people die a lot. I feel like most of the stuff that goes on, like, my community would be perfectly fine if everybody would just not be so into everything that they would like to be into. Like, dudes, they like about this macho thing, I guess. And it's like the more tough you feel, I guess, and the more tough you seem, is like everybody's like afraid of you. I feel like I'm more creative when, like, if I come up with a song in my head, like if I'm on the bus, and then like that's, to me, that's art. To me, that's, I guess, expressing myself in more of a way to where people can understand me from a different ground stand, instead of me being like, I'm this kind of person, like, oh, I like flowers, oh, I like this color, this is my stuff, like, this is what I like to do. And art is more of a deeper understanding of who Nene really is, instead of who Nene thinks she is. Sunset Youth Center really inspires me to be who I want to be as a person, because sometimes I feel like my voice is low, or I feel like I'm not speaking loud enough for people to hear me, because I guess as a girl, as a person, like, you know, like, there are gonna be people who don't like you, there are gonna be people who do like you, but at the end of the day, it's all how you take it in and how you push it out. Like, you know, like, you have to be a very responsive person. You have to want people to listen to you, and then you have to make people listen to you. So then it's like, do I use my music to make them listen to me? Do I use my art to make them listen to me? Do I use my, you know, my beats to make them listen to where I'm coming from, what my message is to them personally? I feel like learning through doing, especially with, like, me, like, I have dyslexia, so most of the time it has to be a hands-on thing for me to actually get what you're saying. Like, you can't just be like, oh, this is this and this is that, and I'll just look at you like, what are you talking about? Like, I want the math of it, I want the science of it, I want to know exactly why this is this and why this is that. You can't just be like, oh yes, because that's why. Like, no, that's not how it goes. Like, with baking cakes and stuff like that, I started to realize that not only am I a fat person, like, I love cake, I love cupcakes. I wanted to know how to make these cake and cupcakes. I wanted to know how they went together. I wanted to know the difference between baking powder and baking soda and how they would make the food taste different. And I guess from making it by myself and making all the mistakes and the nasty cakes and the nasty cupcakes, and now they're better. So they taste way, way better than they would if I would have put this ingredient. So hands-on lets me make my mistake, lets me fix it. Working with hands-on projects is way easier for me, I guess, because when you have to see what's going on, like when you do math projects and stuff like that, you know, like when you were in 3rd grade and they gave you the blocks, it was easier because you had something in your hand. You had something physically showing you that this was right and this was wrong. So at the end of the day, it makes it way easier for you to understand, because you're manipulating the tools that you have and you're either forming them in the right direction or forming them in the wrong direction, and either way it goes, you learn from it. Recently, I made a video, and it was a collage of this photo shoot I had done, and so from hands-on, like, work, I guess, it was easier for me to understand, okay, this works for the video, this doesn't work for the video, this makes more sense, this doesn't make any sense. So I thought, like, visually, I knew that this was okay, this wasn't okay. For some reason, I've always wanted to learn to make everything. Like, it's just this need to create, like, beautiful things. Like, I wanted to know how to make this blown glass project thing. And, like, you blow into the melted glass and it makes this big bubble, and then you turn it into, like, a flower. And for the longest time, I knew very well that I could not do that. Like, that's fire, this is glass, that's dangerous, but I wanted to do it anyway. Like, yeah, creativity. I like making stuff, building stuff, all that. I think school should embrace your creativity because at the end of the day, you do want to be somebody when you grow up. Yeah, you do want to make a lot of money to where you're not homeless, you want to do very well. Creativity helps you to make up new ideas. Like people who work for magazines, they have to be creative. They don't have a choice. People like creativity. When you work at like a business or a bank, you have to figure out what's gonna pull people to like this. What's gonna make people want to do this? What's gonna make people want to buy this, So if you have no creativity in the world, if schools don't embrace children or encourage them to be creative, you have no creativity in the world. Nobody makes any money. Everyone's outside homeless, broke, I've always wanted to be like in the entertainment industry, or I wanted to be a forensics detective, but I'm not really good with, dead bodies and stuff like that and fingerprinting. So yeah, I'll just take the road of music.
We like to explore different poets and hip-hop artists in the city, and today we have a former participant from Youth Speaks named Kelly. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kelly, also known as K-Smacks. I'm a youth in San Francisco, just trying to make it.
How did you get into poetry?
I actually got into poetry, I think I was 12 years old, and I got locked up at YGC. And we didn't really have much options but to read and write. So I just turned it into a positive outlet and just started jotting all my ideas down on paper.
What were those poems about?
Most poems that I first started off writing was about growing up in the poverty that I was in and that the situation that I was in because I was in foster care. So I was just writing about how it was and how it was in the system. Yeah.
What was your process like? Like how did you get started?
I just started throwing things down on paper, and I wanted them to sound to make them have a rhythm. So I just started making it seem. So I just started writing bits and pieces, and then I would go through it and put it together oh, this sounds good with this part. So
have you ever performed and shared your work?
Yes, I did. I used to be in a program called the Bayview Opera House. And at first, I was doing plays and stuff when I was younger, and then I told the director, her name is Sister Booker, I told her oh yeah, I just started writing poetry, and I showed her a piece, and she hella loved it. She was I really want you to perform this. At first, I was scared, but then it was okay, I want to do it now. I feel it should be put out there.
Which one?
It was called Who Am I? And it was basically because I'm mixed with a lot of different nationalities, and growing up, it was should I hang with the Black people? Should I hang with the Hispanics? It was really just finding where I was fitting in.
Do you feel that writing poetry has helped you, and how?
It's definitely a positive outlet just because I feel a pen and paper can't judge me, and it can't tell my secrets. It can't go tell someone else what I was telling it. So I feel it's a positive outlet, and and if you have me, I have trust issues, so it was I can trust paper, and if I feel I fucked up on it, I could rip it up, and nobody will ever see it.
What are some of the themes and topics that you write about?
There was a couple there was one called Color Me Mine, and that was about Color Me Mine was it was the world is a big puzzle. Where my piece, where do I fit into it? Where could I make myself fit? I've turned right, I've turned left. Where's the positive fit for me in this world, this puzzled world?
Do you have any advice for other poets who are just getting started?
My advice to people who would like to start tapping into poetry and writing, I really feel it's a positive outlet. It's helped me through a lot, and I feel you don't need to know how to rhyme and, make it big like how people perform it. Just do what you know how to do. Express yourself how you know how to express yourself. And later on in like time, you could try to start figuring that out. Like, this flows really well with this. Like, let me see how it flows together. You could start putting the pieces together later on. But just to start off, just write what you know how to write. Just jot it down.
That's good advice. How about you share one of your poems with us to close this out?
My queen, when I say she is the air that I breathe, when I say she comes before everything, she makes me sing, falling deeper into her rim. I release my grip, drinking in her love while on my soul she sips. This thing goes quick without the track of time. Our love everlasting, the unopened bottle of red wine.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing from some of our up-and-coming artists who are out here making changes in San Francisco. The Youth Movement Podcast is produced by Cameron Collier, Noelia Gonzalez, Wendy Baker, and Eric Cortez. Our theme song was produced by Cameron Collier. This podcast is recorded at Upstart Records, a project of Sunset Youth Services. We are funded by the Department of Children, Youth, and their Families, and the Youth Empowerment Fund. Special thanks to Nani Chambers, who created this podcast. She is like the brush to your canvas.